You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned indeed. At the 420 studio in Alameda, California, down by the lagoon. The lagoon, as Archie would have said to you, it's the lagoon, they're down there, and it stinks. It's man-made, it's Alameda, everything is landfill, one earthquake, and we're done for. That's what Archie would have said to Edith, but both no longer with us. But their spirit and their mindset is something that's going to stay with us as a society for a very, very long time. The Archie Bunker, guest and new friend Jeffrey Leonard, not the hack man, Jeffrey Leonard, from L.A. How are you?
Fine. How are you, Ralph?
All right. Reason Jeffrey is a guest. He runs a website, as it were, a page on Facebook for folks like myself who are into what kids today don't understand. It's called nostalgia, and people with a lot of time on their hands tend to think back. And we share a passion. It's baseball. Tell me a little bit about your page, first of all, and let's go from there. Jeffrey, an L.A. person who was 8 years old when the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn. Dodgers Giants moved. I was a few years older, 8, maybe 10. I was 10, and it broke my heart, and they got a team. So time heals old wounds, as they say, but the scar tissue is still there. Tell me about your page, and I'll shut up.
Okay. Well, I started a page called The History of Baseball, the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, because that's basically the era that is the most nostalgic to myself. And baseball today, as we know, is a lot different than it was back in those days. And the Dodgers came out here in 1958 and played in the L.A. Coliseum, which was not built for baseball, but definitely served the purpose for 4 years until Dodger Stadium was opened in 1962. And the Dodgers even won a World Series in the Coliseum in 1959. And a guy named Sandy Koufax came along and turned L.A. upside down when it came to baseball. And
Sandy was terrific, yeah.
And
did you see him a lot in person, or was it? Did you have? It was TV must have been like it was all over the country, sporadic, actually, maybe once a week.
No, in L.A. they only televised games that were in San Francisco, so we only saw 9 games per season on television. So
wow!
I went to a lot of games in those days. You could get a great seat for $2.50. So we would, my dad and mom and I were big fans, and we saw Sandy pitch, very often. And we went to games, quite often, and sometimes we'd go just because Sandy was pitching, but Drysdale was great. In those days, the Dodgers had good teams year after year, and that was pre free agent days, and it was fun.
Right.
Free Wills
Right.
and the Davis boys, and it
Junior Gilliam
really
and
was exciting.
Wally Moon.
Wally Moon, and you know, there were leftovers from the Brooklyn days. Hodges was still on the team for a couple of years, and Duke Snyder, and
Right.
it was exciting. It was so much bigger than I was at that time, and I just really got into it. And so I started this page for people that loved baseball in that era as much as I do and did, and it's been a ball. I've really had a good time with it.
Well, what I commend you on most is your consistency. You've got something every day, and it's well put together. There nothing one has to question factually, and it's good nostalgia. It's good to see what other people are thinking about in terms of how they remember the game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you miss
really
most
glad
about
to
the
hear this.
game? That you mentioned that, as we know, it's not the same. Obviously, is it the DH, the prospect of having all DH? Is that?
Well,
I mean,
I
that's
think
a little
free
scary.
agency.
Or
Yeah, free agency, I think, was the first step in changing the game and the way we look at it, because teams no longer had dynasties. Players rarely stayed on a team for their entire career. So things started changing a lot once that happened. And
right.
It's just gone from there. And now, you know, the salaries are so ridiculously high. You know, the players are held to a different standard. Back in the days when we were growing up, I had a couple of players that lived in my neighborhood, and I know it was that way back in New York too. They were.
Oh, I didn't know you were back. You were from New York.
No, I never. No, I wasn't from New York, but I'm just saying when the Dodgers were back in New York, I had.
Oh, I got you. Ah,
yeah,
right.
That said that you know, Carl Erskine and people like that during the season lived down the street from them, and you would never see that today unless you were a multimillionaire.
Right.
So
but the one thing, the salaries, believe it or not, are, from an entertainer's standpoint, are not all that outrageous given the cash flow of the biz, the big biz, that the big biz of baseball has become. So I don't blame it on the players that they're getting what they can. They're sharing in the revenue, with the clothing and the helmets and the bats and the logos and all this. Salaries aren't all that outrageous given their short period of time, the inordinate amount of skill that it takes to advance through the minors, to be skilled enough to sign in the first place, and the work and finding a good chemist, for instance, that takes hours. Anyway, early baseball memories that you want to share from being a fan that led you to being a fanatical fan, much like myself, that just thinks about those days.
Well,
and what did you read as a kid in relationship to baseball? What were the books that you read?
Always read Baseball Digest. And,
okay, me too.
Sport Magazine and Baseball Digest were my two favorites. Mainly Baseball Digest because it had all the rosters in the back of each issue.
Right,
which I loved.
right.
And
you could see the guys who were brought up and sent down and what their numbers are. And that was a good one. Did you read the sporting news much as a kid?
Sometimes, not regularly though. But
okay.
You know, it really was the all-encompassing thing to read at that time. But I wasn't a regular reader of sporting news, but great memories. One of them was during the summer of '62. My family is from Chicago, and we used to go back there every summer. And one summer I went back there, in '62, and we took the elevated to Wrigley Field, which dropped us off right outside the ballpark. And in those days, kids could go by themselves. I went there with my brother and my cousin. I mean, we were all of, I was 12, my brother was 14, and we went to the ball game by ourselves. And for a buck a piece, we got in, and we snuck down over the Cincinnati Reds dugout, and we watched the game from there. And there was a pitcher on the team at the time named Jim O'Toole, and his brother Randy was the bat boy. And so before the game, we kind of started talking to him, and we said to him, "What do you do with the broken bats?" And he said, "Oh, well, I sell them." So immediately we kind of chimed in and said, "Really? How much you sell them for?" And he said $1 a piece. So I said,
"Whoa, affordable." He wasn't outpricing it,
Right.
So you guys bought a bat.
So anyway, during the game, I said to him, if somebody, really good during the game breaks a bat, can I have first dibs on it? And he said, sure. So the game was progressing, and Frank Robinson came up and hit a ball, and obviously you could hear the bat break. And so I ran down next to the dugout, and I said, "Can I have the bat? Can I get the bat?" And he goes, "Sure, meet me back at Wrigley Field." The players run through a tunnel, and then they run upstairs. The clubhouse is upstairs at Wrigley Field in Chicago. And he said, "Meet me there, and do you have $1?" And I said, "Yeah." And I ran down there, and he handed me the bat. I handed him $1, and I still have that bat to this day. And in fact, I've got a den here at home, and I've got my collectibles, and that bat is on display in my den. Here it is 52 years later. And
I'm right with you, brother. I've got stuff that is all around me that takes me back. I've got an autographed Bill Russell, who never autographs for anybody, because I made him laugh in the middle of the street so hard that he almost had tears in his eyes and cackle. And he says, "What's your name?" And he signed to Ralph Best Wishes. I still have it around. So those memories stay with you, and you just see them. You go in and you look, and your mind goes back. And what do you do for research on a daily basis for your page? Because every day you have some guy's birthday, pictures, what they look like then, what they look like now. That takes some research, and it's much appreciated. Again, we talked off the air a little bit. For me, I get on there. I could spend a half an hour on that, just in conversation with different people's responses, and it just prepares me for a wonderful day. So
I'm so glad to hear that, Ralph, because that's my whole purpose in doing the page, is bringing people onto it like you that will appreciate it. Because
and I'm not the only one. There's a group of folks, some I knew beforehand, some that led me to the page, some I've led to the page, that have the same sort of feeling. So I want you to know I'm appreciative of that. It enriches my life. And it's like anything one does, you want the things that that make you happy, that make you feel good, and keep from feeling bad. And you can go back and you say, I'm not that much of a Dodger hater as I used to be. I used to really hate the Dodgers. I was a Giant fan as a kid. And then when they moved, I had a kind of love-hate relationship with them for a long time. Turns out I was stationed out here in the mid-'60s and ended up staying out here as a Met fan and following the Mets from far away and being a Giant apologist, which hasn't always been easy. What was your favorite Dodger team? It doesn't have to be a World Championship team.
Well, it has to be, because the 1963 team that beat the Yankees 4 straight was magic. It was a year. I was the perfect age. I was 13. World Series tickets in those days were $10, so anybody could go. Where, not like today where you need to take out a second mortgage. And it was a perfect time. It was a perfect time, a perfect team. Anytime, my mom and dad, who are now gone, were my closest baseball, compadres. And we shared so many great things together. And the other night when the Dodgers clinched the division, I just sat and cried, because I knew years previous I would be sitting with my mom and dad and we'd be enjoying it together.
Man, that's nice. That's really
now
sweet.
I don't have them. So, that's hard for me. But I know they would want me to carry on.
I'm thinking back now to anytime I get heartburn, I harken back to my days with my parents. So, whatever brings you back, and they're gone too, and that's not always easy to go back and realize that. They'd be proud of what you're doing, though. The thing that my grandfather brought me to the game of baseball when I was just a little kid at the Polo Grounds, and he would be proud of this show and the passion that he instilled. I mean, they didn't just share it with you; they brought it to you, your parents, right?
Right. That's true. That's absolutely the truth. And
so, very, very cool to hear, and that humanizes you to me. This show has, and I want my listeners and friends and Facebook friends to come to the site. Repeat it. Just repeat the title of it, if you would, please.
Yeah, the history of baseball in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. It's
right. That shouldn't be that hard for me to remember, but you know what?
All you have to do is punch in baseball, and it's under that category on Facebook. And
beautiful. Makes it easy to find then, because there aren't. And when you do that, you won't find many good sites on there. And Facebook has a lot of folks, and your site is growing. And if everybody just tells all their friends, it can grow even more and bring more people to it, because it's terrific. And I think this week, to tell you I'm not just blowing smoke, Rocco Calavito was featured, who was a Bronx boy, as my grandparents would say, a Bronx boy. And
that's right.
He had a terrific career, and Rocky Calavito could hit the baseball. Am I right?
He could. And he even was on the Dodgers for a very short time. That was a big thrill.
I think he came in. I don't know for sure if it was with the Dodgers. I know with the Yankees for sure. He was with the Yankees for a while, and he got in some late innings as a pitcher. Rocky Calavito had a gun for an arm. He could have been a pitcher. but you couldn't keep that bat out of the lineup. It was
yeah, he pitched too. Yeah, he did.
So if nothing else, I was reminded this week of, and he looks great. He must be in his 70s, and he showed a picture of how he looks now, and he's, you got to hang in there, and it's nice you can do it in a graceful manner. So here's to you, Rocco. Cleveland Indians of 1959, the year that they played the White Sox, the Dodgers did. I really rooted for Cleveland. They had Pearsall, excuse me, in center field, one of my favorites of all time. Little smoker's cough there. That it's time to change the bong water. You know what I'm saying? At the 420 studios, we'll have the intern come in and do that if we could find an intern. But they had Pearsall in center field in those days in 1959. Woody Held at shortstop, and they were beat out by the White Sox, and that was a good year.
Yep.
So, thanks for the memories today. You're tremendous, Jeffrey. You're the most articulate Jeffrey Leonard I've ever met, and I did get to meet the other one who was a minor league coach. And he was on his way to some sort of ceremony, and I got to meet him in my duties as the Tufts representative. And
I've got a couple of the Hackman's bats too.
Yeah, Hackman could hit the baseball.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, I collected some stuff. I've got a couple of
87, 89, he was a hitter. And funny part is, he and Will Clark hated each other as much as two human beings could hate each other based on everything. And they kept it together, and they won a lot of games. And like I say, I'm a Giant apologist, but those were good years for the Giants.
Absolutely.
And we both got to think about our teams, our boyhood teams, a little bit, and that's what it's about. And got to share good baseball talk with my audience. And I will cough first. There I go. And then I will end the segment the way I do every segment. I want you to hear this, Jeffrey. Okay. I implore you and my guests, all my guests, future guests, past guests, audience, which is generally the same people, but I implore you to keep your dreams wet, keep your humor dry, keep your kid off the laps of clerics wearing dresses. That makes me laugh and cough at the same time. And keep your kid out of the recruiting stations, military recruiting stations. You'll be better off. Have a great one. Keep on keeping on, too. Bye, Jeffrey. I'm laughing and crying. I'm coughing so much, but I enjoyed the shit out of this one. Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot, Ralph. Bye-bye.
See ya. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, 420 Studios, down by the lagoon. And I am joined by a fellow Jackson Heightsman, Jackson Heights, New York. We both grew up in the same neighborhood. Me a few years before. Love to talk ball with Wyatt Unger. You're a repeated guest and a great one. So how you doing, my friend?
Hi, Ralph. Thank you for having me. I'm doing
you've been an addition to the show for last year and a half, 2 years, and we talk periodically. And I was just thinking to myself that the one thing I appreciate most about Wyatt Unger is that you're able to be totally objective about the teams that you root for, and you don't go overboard with your predictions, and you don't talk with your heart, you talk with your head, but you do have certain loyalties. You're a Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. A lot to talk about with the conclusion of this baseball season. We're awaiting playoffs to start in a few days. Everything's in place. The Mets didn't even finish 500, which something that a brain would have been able to figure out, but not hard. I thought they had good pitching, and I still think that if Wright and Granderson had years like they should have had, or just regular old years instead of horrible years, they might have been there, because Duda came on very strong, and they got some good catching, and their pitching is terrific. So, on the Yankee side, Derek Jeter was the big story, because sadly, and I don't root for the Yankees, certainly, but it's always better when the Yankees are winners. And I have this begrudging respect for them. Begrudgingly, over the years, they've been incredible. From the time I was a kid till now, with small exceptions, few exceptions. So, what do you think of Derek Jeter and his last year and the whole thing?
I have to tell you, as a Yankee fan, you have to like Derek Jeter, and some people, of course, idolize him. But this past year, and even these past few years, the whole marketing thing, it's, I see it for what it is. It's all about cultivating the image and the dollars, and this, the whole thing with the whole year. It just, this whole past year, this retirement tour, for me, it was kind of sickening. All you have to do is look at the difference between Jeter's retirement tour and Mariano Rivera's retirement tour. Mariano Rivera, they marketed him. The Yankees had the right to market him, but Jeter took it to an unprecedented level, and like I say, I'm sorry, but no one is that good of a person. No one transcends to real life like that. It was all image. That Gatorade commercial, where they tried to show him being a man of the people. He was never a man of the people. It was just
he's a millionaire, so it's hard to be a man of the people being a millionaire. That's one thing. But I will say this: there were no major scandals, nothing. 20 years of playing ball in the public limelight. I think when Rodriguez came over, Rodriguez had more range at shortstop, and if Jeter were the ultimate team captain, player, this, that, and the other thing, he would have moved over to third base. And instead, you weaken two positions by not doing so. That's what I think years ago.
I agree. Or moving to the outfield, even afterwards in the last few years.
Right. Or DH him in the last few years. Or you had many more options. I think Rodriguez. Now, whether or not he was tainted at that time with steroids is another story. But we don't hear much about him anymore. This guy, he was something else for many years. And Rodriguez, I'm talking about. And I thought he, purely as a shortstop with range and an arm and this, that, and the other thing. Not that Jeter wasn't very solid, and not that, anytime it's like Pete Rose, you get over as many hits as approaching 4,000 hits. That's says a lot. He's steady as hell. Played, didn't get hurt, didn't complain. So, but you did mention something on Facebook when I made a post about Bob Shepard and the fact that they're no longer playing his introduction. And Shepard's been dead like 2 or 3 years now. They continue now putting number 2, Derek Jeter. Number 2.
The only one on the Yankees who attended Bob Shepard's funeral was Brian Cashman. He actually delivered.
That's absolute. I know it's true now, but it's absolutely shocking that not one player, let alone frickin' Derek Jeter, who was milking that thing till last weekend, didn't attend it. And I don't think it's necessarily a slur against Derek Jeter per se, if you don't take into consideration that he was using the voice. It was all players, all base. They don't communicate the way they did. They don't. It's like in the old days with the Dodgers in town. The Dodgers lived in Brooklyn. They shop to the same stores. You'd see them on the street, that kind of thing.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to say one thing about the Bob Shepard funeral, and this says it all, okay? If Jeter was so enamored with Bob Shepard, if he wanted, and if I must pay my respects, I want to use his voice and this and that, okay? You know what? He would have gone to the funeral, and the only thing, unless something, but he did, you know what, when he was asked why he didn't go to the funeral, do you know what his answer was? I didn't even know when the funeral was. That was his quoted answer. He didn't even know when the funeral was. Okay, so to me, that right away, tells me a bigger story. Like I could understand if he knew when the funeral was and there was something pressing. I believe they said it might have been around All-Star break. I think Derek had flown to Tampa to visit his family. But the thing is, if it was me, I guess, I don't know, and I was so close to the guy, I thought so much of the guy, I would have at least said, when is his funeral? Gee, I want to see if I can at least make it, if I have that window of time. Or can I send flowers, anything, But for him to just say, I didn't even know when the funeral was, that to me, speaks volumes. So,
yeah.
And that's why I think the whole, and after that, I just started to see a little more. The whole image was cultivated. The whole thing with, even his foundation. Who heads the foundation? His sister. It's. And you know what? It's funny. I meant to look this up the other day. There are, you can see what the administrative costs, et cetera, are for nonprofit foundations. I meant to look that up. I forgot. I was very curious about that. But anyway, let's get away from Derek Jeter. The season.
Okay, let's talk playoffs coming up. We got both American League, National League, full slate thereof. First, we have what aren't really playoffs; they're play-ins. It's the big misconception that the teams that make the second playoffs or wild card, they didn't make the playoffs yet. They still have to make the playoffs. It's like a consolation. It's like the game before the NCAA's to get guys. Can they qualify for the end?
It's a qualifying round.
Yeah. So first, let's pay homage to the teams that ended up winning. Dodgers won. Cardinals won.
Which I predicted, or I got all 3 National League division winners correct. I got 2 out of 3 American League division winners correct. I totally blew it on the AL East. Not only I said that it was that not only would either Boston, Tampa, or the Yankees win the division, I also said that the other two teams would make the playoffs. Would be the Wild would play for the would be the qualifiers, so to speak.
Right,
Totally
right, as it were.
Totally.
But my hat's off to Baltimore, Bucky Showalter. I'll tell you why. If anybody would have said that they could win, you had Weeders being healthy in your head and still weren't predicting they'd win. Weeders was hurt. Chris Young at the end of the season, drugs, not steroids, but some sort of speed, some sort of amphetamine that was illegal, so he was suspended. I don't know if he can come back for the playoffs. I don't know if it was 25 games, and I don't know if he's going to qualify for that. But anybody said they'd won without those two guys for as long as they didn't have them. It was pretty well determined by the time Young left. But I give them a lot of credit. So there you go. Hats off. I'm glad for my friend Andrew Doza. He's been a Baltimore fan for all these many years. He doesn't play fantasy baseball. He says, the Orioles are my fantasy team. When they win, that'll be a fantasy come true. And it took a long time. I went to a lot of A's games and watched the A's beat the Orioles with him, and he takes it very seriously. So hats off to Andrew for being a true fan of your team through the good times and the bad times. And yeah, it's not, but it's not when the Yankees aren't in it. And I wanted them. Again, my opinion of Jeter has been changed drastically by your remarks and your writings to me on Facebook. So, but I was rooting for them to get into the playoffs, just so he could go out in that manner. He will make the Hall of Fame. Do you agree on the first ballot?
Oh, that's a no-brainer, of course, without a doubt. And he's a darling of the media. He might become the first player to get 100% of the vote. You never know.
There are writers that didn't vote for people like Ted Williams and Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, and they should lose their credential right at that moment.
Without a doubt.
You should never be allowed to vote, because you may not have liked the fact that Ted Williams spit into the fans or spit this and didn't like the press, didn't get along. But to not vote for him and to not vote for him for MVP when he hit 400 was absolutely craziness too. So writers are a very, and I understand how it is. If you meet somebody, if you have a relationship with them, like Ford Frick and Babe Ruth, it changes your thinking. It's hard to be objective. You're about, like I say, I really admire the fact that you can talk objectively about teams that you root for and players that you like, and on one level and maybe not on another level. So thanks for doing that. Who do you think's going to advance first? The one-day playoff thing. We got the Pirates playing the Giants, and it's at Pittsburgh. Any prediction there?
By any chance, do you know who the starting pitcher is for the Giants tomorrow?
It's Bumgarner, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. My son just confirmed. It's Bumgarner. I know it's Volquez. I tell you what. You know what? It's a toughie, but I'm gonna go with the Giants. I'm gonna go with the Giants.
All right.
And in the American League, Wyatt, who's pitching for Kansas City? Shields.
Yeah, you got John Lester for Oakland.
And John Lester. I'm gonna go with Kansas City. No, wait a second. Hold on. Let me think for a second. I'm thinking I'm thinking Kansas City. I like some of their righty bats. Lester, though, is actually one of those lefties who this year was pitching better against righties than lefties. No, I'm going to go with Kansas City. If the game is close, they've got that unbelievably deep bullpen. I'm going to go with Kansas City.
Okay. I give Oakland a lot of props for coming back in this last week and a half from absolutely a tailspin that was unbelievable. I mean, I like them. They're out here in my hometown. I've adopted them in the American League. I'm so witchy.
I'm going to tell you something, though. If Oakland does beat Kansas City tomorrow, they got as good a chance as anybody because of their rotation.
Yeah, Sonny Gray like the third best pitcher now with Lester, but I think that I still think that trade. First of all, they went into a tailspin after the trade, taking Cespedes away, who ended up with 100 ribbies for the year. So he's never going to be Willie Mays, but he's solid as hell. Taking him out of the middle of that lineup was a mistake.
It wasn't taking Cespedes away. What it was is, one, Brandon Moss has been playing hurt. He's got a hip injury. That's why, he totally nosedived in the second half.
And Gomes was hurt as well, and Jaso was hurt. Oh, absolutely. But my conventional wisdom is you don't trade a superstar pitcher for a superstar hitter. The numbers on the baseball card will bear out more often from year to year what you're going to get next year from your hitters than they will from your pitchers. I don't know if that's
but you know what? That's okay for fantasy ball with in a league where you can retain your players. Okay, but in the major leagues, it's win now. And they were so far ahead of the pack when they made that trade. They felt as though that they were fortifying themselves, that there was no doubt that they were getting into the playoffs. They probably had no doubt that they'd be in first place. They wouldn't even have to play in that qualifying round. And what they wanted was they wanted that rotation to match up against Detroit's rotation. They wanted a rotation, and if they got to the World Series, they wanted a rotation that can match up with St. Louis, with Washington. I think St. Louis and Washington have better pitching staffs as far as going deep into the starting rotation than the Dodgers and Giants. So, well,
I think definitely. Giants a lot of question marks. Hudson has not pitched well down the stretch. Lincecum's a clown. Kane has been hurt. They went out and got Peavy, which was a terrific move. He's a gutsy,
Pettit's been
balls against the wall kind of pitcher. But let me just finish one thing. They had Gray set up as the go-to guy. All right, he's a rookie, but they put it in his head that you're going to be you're the number one guy, and he was doing the job as the number one guy. You didn't need Lester. You didn't have to make the move. Now, to make the move, Gray slumps up until the last clutch game the other day. He slumped all the way down the stretch. And I think when you have a thoroughbred athlete, these are world-class athletes, what separates them from week to week, month to month, is their head, their mindset. Most of them have great bodies, and because of their great bodies, they don't choose to use the brain part as often because they can get by just being great athletes in school, and you get scholarships, you get passes, you get tutors, and this, that, and the other thing. Their heads are very vulnerable, and I know that baseball being a marathon, that a lot of it is that. I think they fucked with Sonny Gray, who, to his credit, came back, like I say, the other day and pitched a great clutch game, which, they could have been out of it altogether, which would have meant that the A's had one of the great El Foldos in history. So,
you know what?
I didn't like the trade. Cespedes, it took him a couple of years to adjust. You paid that price coming from Cuba. You had Crisp, who was playing center. He should have moved over to left because he has a rag arm, and Cespedes had been a center fielder all his life. But Crisp got up on his high horse and didn't move to left, even though he's probably faster and better, more tools in center other than his arm. But it would have been better. No, Cespedes goes to left, adjusts to all of that, and new language, new mores, new league, and to not look into the future. He's already signed through next year. They wanted to get rid of him because they had no chance of signing him next year. Do you think they have a chance of signing Lester? No way. They'll never, unless they win the World Series and Lester wants to stay, will he sign?
Ralph, let me say something about Sonny Gray. One thing you're missing about him having a rough August, okay? And is that, don't forget, he pitched like around 215 innings this year, okay? That's right. You know, did you think that?
Oh yeah, for a young guy, no question about that.
You know, I don't think it had anything to do with Lester, you know, being anointed number one when they got him in the trade. I think that, you know, the season itself started to wear on him, and you know what? And maybe having Lester and taking some of the pressure off of the kid, maybe that's what helped him come back. You know, and have a stronger September, not a great September, but a much stronger September, and let him finish, you know, on the last day, pitch that fantastic game. So
yeah, well, I hope you're right, and I hope he continues to develop. And hey, being number 2 and number 3 to Lester, that bad? And they have the other guy from Chicago, Singard or whatever his name is. They're very, very deep. And Doolittle is terrific in the bullpen. He had a bad stretch for a while. He comes through in the end. You got to like him. There's a new proposal out for some sort of baseball village that I just glanced at a little while before the show, and I'll look at and post on Facebook to build a ballpark that's decent for them and that compares to the ballpark across the way, because people will get to see that you build a ballpark like in Colorado and other places, Baltimore. It refurbishes the whole area around it. It's an investment in the inner city that Robert Moses refused to look at 50 years ago that would have shown some foresight. So I'm glad that Oakland's doing that. And we'll see what happens. Onward with playoff talk.
What are your predictions for the playoffs?
Well, I really predict that the Giants will go all the way if they win tomorrow. I think there's something about, I think they're going to be smart enough to put this young kid, Brown, instead of Pagan's hurt out for the year. Nobody can replace him on the Giants. They have this young kid who was a first-round draft choice. I think it's Gary Brown, but Gary Brown. Okay, and struggled through the minors, but fast as fuck, and bunted for a hit the other day. Something that Bochy is just not a bunting guy. He's not a sacrifice guy. That's all right. You're smart enough to use the talent that you have. And I think if they took a chance and put him in center field, let him lead off, he'd be a catalyst. Plays like Hunter Pence are so intense around this time of year. He slumped down the stretch. Sandoval has been slumping. But I look for those guys to break out, and if they have the guts to put Brown in, and again, I'm talking with my heart, because the Giants were my team as a kid.
I was certainly going to remind you of that once you were done.
Right. And I'm listening to great announcers in San Francisco. John Miller, who's been had the national gig for all those years, is so great to listen to on a daily basis. And they have Kruk and Kuiper and Krukow do the color and do the TV, and it's marvelous. Yesterday was the last day I'll be able to walk in the sun during the day and listen to baseball on my transistor and sit on the beach, and so I miss this time of year a lot. Baseball season in general, an awful lot for my lifestyle. But they've been there. Here's what I said. They've been there. This is their third playoff appearance in the last 5 years. They won twice.
Question. Who do you think is going to defeat in the World Series?
Well, now, if you word it that way, did I call for logic? Am I just dreaming for a while, and then we'll have logic? Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, I got to tell you this. If it comes to it, the Dodgers are flawed, yet getting Kemp back really solidified them down the stretch. He's terrific when he's healthy.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what the key will be for the Dodgers, just as this is what hurt them last year. The key for the Dodgers will be how healthy Hanley Ramirez is for the playoffs. That's going to be their key. And last year, if you remember, he had that bad rib cage injury. He was pretty much useless to them. Okay? Kemp coming on has been a huge boom to them, without a doubt. And without him coming on, I don't know if they would have pulled it off. But now we take it up a notch. Okay, as Hanley Ramirez goes, that team will go. D. Gordon has been he's been a great surprise, good comeback story after failing, in his sophomore year and even being a little lost and being lost last year. So, but I don't think their bullpen is deep enough. I don't think their bullpen is as good as it looked on paper at the beginning of the year. St. Louis is deep, but I don't think they have the bats. I like Washington. They've got the rotation and the bullpen, and they've got the bats. I would have to, pick Washington. I would have to go with Washington and Detroit, although Detroit's bullpen is very shaky. But their rotation is awesome. They've got the offense, and they've actually got a pretty nice mix in their offense. So
you got Verlander and Porcello, who's not had a great year either.
You're forgetting Price and Scherzer.
Oh, yeah, no question. Oh, yes.
Verlander's not even the ace anymore. But again, he showed what he was made of, and you know what? He came on last week when they needed it. Just like last year, he came on in the playoffs after having a very un-Verlander-ish season. So
yeah, it's like hockey. It goes up a notch in intensity around playoff time.
But I'll tell you what, all the playoff teams, including the qualifiers, I tell you what, there's a lot of parity there, and I don't mean mediocrity. I mean they're really. I don't think I've ever seen such an even field from when you have particularly there's out of 10 teams even for in each league they're all it's I don't think anyone can say, oh no, it's a no-brainer. It's like no ifs, ands, or buts. This team is so far and above that team or this team. It's just not there. It's just not there this year.
Right.
So.
Hey, listen, this has been terrific. Let's assume it comes down to it. The two teams, World Series, and I'll say the Giants, just for argument's sake. Who do you think they'd be playing in the American League?
Well, I just told you. I think Detroit's hitting and starting pitching will carry them. You know, of course, their Achilles heel is their bullpen, but you know. Okay.
So you think it'll be, and who do you think it'll be in the National League? Because I would trust your prognosis more than mine. Because again, you can do it with your head. And
I'm gonna go with Washington because they've got that deep rotation, that deep bullpen. San Francisco's rotation is not as deep as it was. A real unsung hero for the second half of the Giants has been Pettit. You know, going from the bullpen to the
yes,
rotation.
Absolutely. And the guys that they called up, the two guys, Panic and the catcher Suarez.
You know, Panic is from St. John's, right?
No, I did not know that. Oh, very nice. Very, very nice. That's Aurelio was a middle infielder from Brooklyn too, as well, and that keeps the tradition going. I didn't know that, or if I knew it, I forgot it. That's tremendous. So, like I say, a lot will be determined if it's not my dice game, but I'd roll that dice and let Gary Brown play center field.
You know what? I would let him play center field, but I wouldn't bat him leadoff.
Yeah, but they don't have much else to bat leadoff. They've even had Pence batting leadoff. Panic's been terrific at number 2, so they moved Pence to 5. They moved him back to leadoff to try to get his bat alive. And that didn't work, and I think it weakens the lineup down the road. Belt is back. That's another question mark. He's rusty. He's had concussions. They're a flawed team. There's no question about that. But so I'm just rooting. Let's put it that way.
You haven't once mentioned the offensive star and glue of that team, Buster Posey.
I know, and he had an MRI the other day for a hip thing that they're downplaying. I would like to see him at first, and I'd like to see Suarez, the catcher, who's been terrific in there. He's got you get what you get. He did put up a 300 batting average and 22 home runs this year, but it took a streak to do it at the end. And you're absolutely right. That's a clutch guy. So guys like Pence, Posey, Sandoval, they've been there before. A lot of it is that. I mean, the Giants a couple of years ago had to come back in 3 different playoff situations when they were down big and came back to win it. So not a team I'd count out. Bochy is a terrific manager, players manager, though he is. He gets a lot out of these guys. So fun times ahead.
They got a heck of a pitching coach, too.
Oh, Rigetti, absolutely. Speaking of no-hitters in New York, whoa.
On July 4th.
Yeah.
And did you know that July 4th was George?
All right. Hey, listen, I'm going to cut it at this point and tell you that I want you to keep coming back, Wayne, because it's fun for me. And that's all that this thing is about, and that's all that this thing called life is about. Have as much fun as you possibly can.
Okay.
And
before we go, Ralph, Wyatt,
yes.
Give me predictions.
I think that maybe
Wyatt says he's between the Dodgers and the Giants in the National and the Tigers in the American. So
that's his prediction.
That's his prediction. And who's going to win the World Series? He's with you, Ralph. He's going with the Giants.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know. He's with you, Ralph. I don't know. He's got a road ahead of him. Hope he's right. And that's his radio debut. Happy to have that. And I'll send you a link to this. It's going to be on YouTube by tomorrow morning. And it was terrific having you as usual. I'll end the show as I do. Every segment that I do, I will implore you, your son, everybody listening, everybody in the world, to keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet, keep the kids off the laps of clerics wearing dresses. It's always a good thing. And keep your kid out of recruiting stations. Military recruiters will lie to your child. And when and if your child comes back, they will be different. Look it up. Different. If they come back. All right. So, and of course, keep on keeping on. So, thanks, guys, both of you. We will talk again real soon.
All right, Ralph. Have a good night. Thanks for having us.
All right. Be well.